If you do a lot of different types of projects like I do, you'll find a really helpful thing to have on hand is a tool tote or tool caddy. I made this one many years ago when we bought a house and there was some scrap cedar left over from when the house was built in 1924. The cedar was in the attic of the garage. And so, using the limited tools I had on hand, I slapped this caddy together just to see if I could. I've gotten a lot of use out of it over the years. I've since added side parts to it using scrap cedar fence planks, and I made it even more useful. Today, I want to build another one, but with a very special purpose. A good friend of mine named Peter has been really helpful to me doing some car repairs, and so to say thank you, I want to build a tote for him that's designed to hold automotive tools. These things are great because when you're doing a project, you're not running back and forth from the garage to the driveway or the backyard. You have all your stuff together, and it saves a lot of time, and it's fun. We're going to use scrap plywood that I have left over from a previous project, and I want to show you that with limited tools, with jets flying overhead, both the cicadas and the Air Force do not want me to make any type of quality video. But what we can make is a quality tool tote. Now I'm just a regular guy, not a professional plumber, mechanic, electrician, and as you're about to see, I'm definitely not a professional carpenter. But I like to do things myself the right way, and by doing so, we have fun and we save money. If you're ready, let's do some stuff. I plan for this tote to be 22 inches long and 15 inches wide. This is because I could make the best use of the available scrap plywood I had. There will be an 8-inch high divider running the length of the tote. Those side walls will be 6 inches. Then we'll add a couple of extra pieces of wood here and there for screwdrivers, ratchets, pins, things like that. We want to make this as functional, as useful as possible. Now before I start cutting, there's a couple things I want to go over with you. Number one, if you don't have a table saw, only a circular saw like this, don't worry, you can still make really good cuts. There's two secrets to that. Number one, you want to use a cutting guide. I got this one at Lowe's. It's made by Swanson. Ron Swanson himself made this. He forged the aluminum and he handed it to me. You clamp it to the piece of wood you're cutting, you get a really nice straight edge. Another trick is, whenever you're measuring to make your cut, measure from the factory edge of the plywood. Even if we're working really hard to make straight cuts, there still will be small imperfections. But if you measure from the factory edge of the plywood, working your way back towards it with each cut, you're going to have better, more consistent straight cuts because you're starting by measuring from a perfectly straight edge.
People are going crazy, slipping and sliding away. These days are looking so hazy that I gotta say, today, well, I've never been so very happy. I've never been so glad. Now, I never mean to sound sappy, but there ain't nothing that's bad.
All my circular saw cuts are done. I can do everything else with the miter saw. It's much quicker because it's already set up to be exact in the angles that it cuts at. It's going to save me a lot of time, and also when I do the extra wooden pieces for screwdriver and ratchet holders, I'll be using the miter as well.
never been so glad. Now I never mean to sound sappy, but there ain't nothing that's bad.
Now I'm going to get my piece of plywood that goes on top of this table to protect it. It gives me a nice level surface to work from. And my air compressor, and we'll start gluing and putting the brads in these pieces. This is the end piece. I've screwed these two pieces together so when I make the cut, they'll be exact. Now a couple of things. I measured 6 inches from the corner. That means I'm going to have a 45-degree angle. So I have the miter saw set up to cut 45 degrees. I'll make one cut, flip the miter saw around, cut the other side. This is the handle I'm going to use. It's just from Broomstick. I already had it in my utility room, so I'm going to cut it to the right length here in a little bit. It is 1 inch, so I'm going to use this 1 inch paddle bit. I'll drill a hole through both of these end pieces at the same time so the holes will be lined up, and then it'll be ready to go when we assemble it and put the handle in later on. When you're drilling with the paddle bit, it will tear out when it goes out the other side. So a way to limit tear out is have another scrap piece of wood under the wood you're drilling through. You can get going pretty fast in the middle, but once you're getting towards the end, slow down so you have less tear out. Entry is very clean. Tiny bit of tear out on the back side. That's okay, because by the time we sand this down, you want to be able to see that. With all the pieces cut, this is how it will mock up. The centerpiece will be down the middle. So what I'll do before I start gluing and before I start gluing it together and using the brad nailer, I'm going to take a sander and get all the rough edges, clean it up. I can sand off any pencil marks I made, just make it look real nice. Yeah, so here's the thing about belt sanders. Number one, if you don't have a lot of experience using one, be careful. They are hungry, hungry little beasts. Secondly, always keep extra belts on hand. I don't have any extra belts on hand. Now I have to finish the rest by hand. Check out this little baby. This is my Harbor Freight brand compressor. I bought this thing 15 years ago. It still works. It is dirty. It has sheetrock mud and oil and all kinds of unsavory things upon it. Still works after all these years. Now, I don't mean to be a commercial for Harbor Freight, but here's the thing. I'm going to level with you. When you're just a regular guy, you can't always go out and get a DeWalt or a Makita or one of those higher name brands. You just need something that you use occasionally that works. I find myself at Harbor Freight quite often. Time to start the assembly process. The way I have this measured out is that this, the bottom, is 1 inch shorter than the ends, because when you factor in the width, the thickness of the walls, the end will be flush. So what I'm going to do first is add a little strip of glue. I'm using a brad nailer with 1 1/4 inch brads, because that is more than enough to give us what we need. When the glue dries, we have a strong joint. So I'll take this guy, Type Bond, original wood glue. I've marked out a center line here and here. That way I can put a line of glue down. Then I can put my divider in the center and then put the brads in it, and it'll be sturdy and in place. Then we can work on the handle. That ain't going nowhere. Time to cut the handle. Perfect length. Now, what has to happen next is these ends are exactly the same size as the hole they're going into, which means they're going to be tight. You have to be careful when you squeeze it in. You could actually break the wood, split it, makes it look really ugly. So all we're going to do now is kind of sand this down, work it, make it smaller until it fits in that hole. Do the same to both sides, add a little bit of glue, done. I'm going to use this little cheap palm sander that I have. You can do this by hand. I don't want to. Next up, time to add some special touches before I finish for the night. I got inspired. I took some of these little 2x4 or plywood scraps, put it in the corner, nailed it, glued it, because I know one of the things people like to use is an electric ratchet. Fits in there perfectly. And now between these two, I'm going to add a piece of 1x2 with holes in it for screwdrivers and pins and things like that. Safety first, kids. Alright, that fits just right between these two boxes. Now it's time to drill some holes. Time to drill 5/8 inch. This is where I'll stop things today. Everything is glued in place, braided in place. You've got the screwdriver, pin holder, the holes for larger items, and then of course across here, the holder for large ratchets. Pretty pleased with it so far. Tomorrow we're going to make it look really, really cool. Well, today the glue is dry, everything's in place. I cut out a section here under the handle to give a little more space to grab. It's ready to go. Now it's the fun part, finishing. If you want to stop now, you can use it like it is. It's functional. You can paint it. You can do whatever you want. I want to give it a little more pop, a little more pizzazz, a little more panache, whatever that is, by burning it. So take a torch. We're going to do a light wood burn on the outside just to really bring out the grain. Sand it. Put a clear coat on it. Should be fun. Let's do some stuff. Now certainly I shouldn't have to tell you to take adequate safety precautions. This is wood, this is fire, wood burns with fire. So be careful, make sure you have a fire extinguisher in reach, make sure that nothing around you is flammable, because I don't want you catching your house on fire and you're telling everybody that I told you to do it. Wouldn't be nice. Let's get to the flame. I gave the tote a few minutes to cool off. Here it is, all nice and burned looking. So remember, if you don't think it's burned enough, you can burn it more. We're about to sand it with 220 grit sandpaper. That will lighten it up some. If it makes it too light, I'll burn it a little bit more to get the color that I want. And then we'll work on finishing. Now you can see how much lighter it is. I like it. I'll probably just leave it like that. Or if you're not going to use a clear coat finish, you can just leave it like it is. It'll take little bumps and bruises along the way, add to the character, but I want to make it a nice shiny glossy coat. If you're not sure whether or not you want to use a colored stain or just a clear coat, a quick way to find out how your wood will look with the clear coat on it is just take a wet rag and wipe it. Now, I have to wipe this off anyway to get off the surface dust before I put on a clear coat, but if I wipe this, look how that grain pops. Ooh, yeah. I'm satisfied with that. I'm going to clean off the rest of the dust, let it dry, and then we'll do the final coat. I decided to mask off the handle and not put a clear coat on it. I just want to have a rougher grip, and it will keep aging over time from skin oils and grease and grime and all that deliciousness. And then I'm just using this Rust-Oleum Ultra Cover 2X Gloss Clear, $4. Thanks for watching A Regular Guy Does Stuff. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe to my channel. I hope to keep making videos that you enjoy and will be helpful to you. Now, I'm going to get showered and cleaned up because I'm sweaty and gross in the Texas heat, and tonight is date night. Every week my wife and I go out on a date because Jesus said that a man is to leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife. It's important, men, if you're married, make sure that you are pouring time into your wife, checking on her. Spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically. The Bible says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her. Let's serve and love our families. And let's go out and do some stuff.